Hi there, and welcome to Trek Theorist. On this channel, I'll be looking at some of the most divisive episodes and movies in the Star Trek franchise and attempting to rewrite them. I'm also going to be looking at some that I personally consider to be deserving of better, and again, seeing if I can improve them. I did consider starting with the elephant in the room that is Star Trek V. However, let's not start super ambitious. Instead, I'm going to start with early TNG, specifically Code of Honor, an episode once described by Jonathan Frakes as a racist piece of shit. Those who don't know, Code of Honor was the fourth episode of Season 1 of The Next Generation, which saw the Enterprise sent to the planet Lygon 2 in order to collect a vaccine from the inhabitants that could only be manufactured by them. Their leader becomes enamored with Tasha Yar, kidnaps her, and basically ends up forcing her into ritual combat to win his affections. Icing on the cake, the Ligonians were all played by actors of African descent and had attire based on nondescript tribal African cultures. In short, the Ligonians were racist caricatures thinly veiled behind the guise of being aliens. If they put them in some heavy makeup, like what we see on Klingons or the Ferengi, and changed the attire, this might have flown, but it was so poorly done and done in such bad taste that I can honestly say it's one of the few episodes of Next Generation that I genuinely dislike. So how am I going to fix this, I hear you ask? Simple, really. I'm going to rewrite the whole thing, and unfortunately, it's no longer going to be a Tasha episode. Instead, it's going to be a Worf episode, something that I do feel that Season 1 of TNG lacked. He didn't really get a whole lot to do until after she left. We open, as so many Next Generation episodes do, with the Enterprise in orbit of a planet as Picard dictates his captain's log. In it, he states that they are in orbit of Lygon 2, which in this version is a Klingon colony. He discusses how the Enterprise has been sent to help repair the colony's defense shield, which was given to them by the Federation as part of negotiations of the peace treaty between the Federation and Klingons nearly a century earlier. We then cut to the bridge, where Picard, Riker and Troy are sat in their normal seats, with Tasha behind Picard and Worf at the helm. Data sat beside him at Ops. Picard, Riker and Troy are discussing the history of the colony, with Worf being visibly uncomfortable and attempting to hide it, to no avail. I feel this would be a good point to give Troy some limitations, specifically that there are certain species she can't read empathically, and Klingons are one of them. This is just because I know that early on especially the writing staff struggled with how to use her and not make her incredibly overpowered, and a limit on what species she can and can't read beyond the Ferengi feels like a good one. Anyway, Data informs Picard that the colony's governor is hailing them. The governor comes up on screen and it is none other than Kang from TOS. In this timeline, he rose up the ranks of the KDF before retiring to an administrative role due to his age. He demands Picard sends his team down immediately, only for Picard to respond that the team will be sent down when they have finished their preparation, unless Kang wishes to cross another captain of the Enterprise. Again, here Kang had a few run-ins with Kirk that we didn't see on screen, so his history of the Enterprise is somewhat more entwined, and he begrudgingly agrees to Picard's terms. Data questions why Picard took that approach when the team is already prepared, with Picard noting that when dealing with Klingons, it's important to maintain a position of strength, and to bow down to Kang's demands will put him in a position of weakness. He then orders Riker to head to the transporter room to beam down, with Riker ordering Worf to come with him, what with being the only Klingon in Starfleet and all. Worf requests not to be included in the away team, but his request is denied, as due to his background he is an appropriate choice for the mission. Again, only Klingon in Starfleet. After what I have to assume would be one of TNG's longer cold opens, we then cut to the away team, consisting of Riker, Worf, Geordi, Wesley, who I have to assume is here on some kind of class project thing, and random security officer number 2. Let's call her Sandra Rodriguez. Kang is waiting for them, and upon being introduced to them greets all of them except Worf by name, who he addresses merely as Lieutenant. Kang mentions he would like to speak with Riker in private to discuss some of the administrative matters of their visit, leaving with him. Wesley notes Kang's response to Worf and questions him on it, but Worf simply tells Rodriguez he needs help moving some of the components they brought. Wesley asks Geordi if he said something wrong and is informed it's just Worf being a Klingon. We then cut to the Enterprise, where Tasha reports to Picard that there are some strange readings coming from just behind the planet's moon. Data notes that it's likely just the ionization of the planet's atmosphere causing sensor echoes of the Enterprise herself, but Tasha remains skeptical. She requests that, as Chief of Security, she be allowed to take a shuttlecraft to investigate the readings. Picard agrees and orders Data to join her. She initially objects. She hasn't been alone with Data since the Naked Now and still feels somewhat uncomfortable around him. However, Picard is adamant that Data should attend in his role as Chief Science Officer. Not only does this allow us to further delve into Tasha's character in a way not seen in the show, it would also just give us a chance to see Brent Spiner play with that comedy he was always so good at in the role. That's just a win for everyone. On the planet, Riker and Kang sit at a table, steaming mugs of Ractogino in front of them. Kang informs Riker that he's due to step down from his position on the colony and that the High Council are in the process of selecting his successor. Currently, it's a split between 3 men. Gowron, who of course we're going to meet later on in TNG, a general named Martok, who I'm sure none of you have ever heard of, and a man named Duras. Little is known about him, only that he has the support of House Kruge. In this version, Duras' family will be descended directly from Kruge's, and Duras himself will be the grandson of the Star Trek III villain. Couple his defeat at the hands of Kirk there with Duras' ancestors' defeat at the hands of Archer, it suddenly makes a lot of sense that Duras and his family don't much care for the Enterprise and her captains. Riker asks why Kang is informing him of this, with Kang telling Riker that he has reason to suspect that House Kruge are engaging in foul play to help ensure Duras' installation. There have been 3 convoys, all of which were due to pass through House Kruge territory, which have mysteriously vanished in the last month. Riker notes that's a very serious accusation, but one that he'll take to Captain Picard. There's a knock at the door. Kang commands the person there enters and Worf steps inside. He sheepishly tells the 2 men that work on the shield is almost complete. Kang gets aggressive, asking if Worf always makes a point of giving information on jobs that are almost done, with Riker defending it as standard Starfleet protocol. Kang then demands that if Worf intends to speak to him, he only do so when the job is complete before storming out. Worf attempts to leave, but Riker blocks his path. "Mr. Worf, what the hell is going on with you?" Riker yells. In my mind, Worf served with Riker on the Hood prior to serving on the Enterprise, so there's some familiarity between them there. He's never known Worf to back down like that. Hell, he's seen Worf continue to argue his point even after he's been proven wrong. Worf initially claims that it's nothing, but Riker tells him if he doesn't answer the question, Riker will have no choice but to assume the mission is compromising him emotionally and relieve him of his duties. This is the encouragement Worf needs. He confides in Riker that prior to joining Starfleet when he was 18, he attempted to join the KDF. In spite of scoring exceptionally well in the tests administered, the officer who was overseeing of missions denied his entrance to the Klingon Academy, citing that Worf's time raised by humans after Khitomer had left him a mongrel, more human than Klingon. That officer was Kang. Yes, I'm aware I'm ripping this from Martok's backstory with Kor in DS9, but frankly it actually works better for Worf, and the subsequent episode can still stand with Martok's issue being solely that Kor's declining health makes him unfit for duty. In any case, Riker sympathises with his friend and apologises for insisting Worf join him on the away team, despite Worf's objections. Worf is taken aback by this apology, standing in shocked silence for a moment, before flagging with Riker that it is he who should apologise for putting his own feelings above his duties as a Starfleet officer. We then cut to the shuttlecraft with Tasha and Data in it. It's dead silent, only the beeping of the various instruments being audible. Data keeps going to say something before being shot a stern look and thinking better of it. Finally, he speaks up. He's aware that Tasha said she doesn't wish to discuss what happened in the earlier episode, but he cannot help but think she's avoiding him. Tasha admits she is. Growing up on a failed colony, the one thing she can't abide more than men being pigs is when they aren't. She's used to being treated with scorn and abuse after her encounters with men, and though she doesn't like it, the way her thick skin has grown, she can handle that. Whereas all Data would do is be perfectly pleasant, be respectful. She doesn't know how to deal with that at all. He notes that clearly he has a lot more to learn about human behaviour and how to avoid making others uncomfortable. She attempts to talk to him to explain it's actually a her problem, not a him problem, before the shuttle shudders violently. They're locked in a tractor beam. In front of them, a Vorcha-class battlecruiser decloaks, flanked by a pair of Katingas. Data notes he believes he owes her an apology for doubting her instincts, to which she says he can apologise if they survive. However, before he can respond, the tractor beam disengages and the ships head towards the planet. Down on the planet, alarms sound. Multiple groups of Klingon warriors armed with disruptors beam in, beginning to open fire indiscriminately on colonists and Starfleet personnel alike. Worf orders Rodriguez to get Geordi and Wesley to safety while he returns fire, taking out a Klingon as two more beam in. We're then treated to a run-and-gun fight with Rodriguez, Geordi and Wesley being pursued by the two new combatants. As they reach a clearing and Rodriguez taps her comm badge, she's struck down by a disruptor bolt. Geordi taps his own badge, requesting an emergency beam out for him and Wesley, while the teenager looks down in shock at the dead woman on the floor as they're beamed away. Back at the main complex of the colony, Riker and Kang are in the midst of their own firefight. As they take down a pair of Klingons, half a dozen more enter. They step aside, allowing their commander to walk in. "I come to claim this colony in the name of House Kruge," he declares as he enters, before introducing himself. "I am Toral, son of Kruge." As he completes his introduction, he's grabbed by the shoulder and turned to face a newcomer to the fray, one who speaks simply. "And I am Worf, son of Moog." Worf strikes Toral in the face, snarling at his men who reach for their weapons for a moment before being ordered off. Toral notes how he knows of Worf and knew his father. He was a traitor to the Empire, who fed the Romulans information prior to their attack on Khitomer. Worf declares him a liar, beginning to defend his father's honour as he fails to notice Toral slowly slipping something from his sleeve. Riker yells for Worf to watch out as Toral charges, Worf sidestepping a slash with a duck tuck. He grabs Toral by the back of his armour, hurling him into the wall, the other man slumping to the floor, dead. Toral's men receive orders to return to the ship, picking up his body in a hurry, his blade being left on the floor for Kang to find in all the commotion. He looks at the blade, before sniffing it. Poisoned. Worf just saved him from what was clearly to be an assassination attempt. Kang thanks him, noting that when things have been dealt with properly, they should talk. Worf agrees that he would like that. Back on the Enterprise, Picard has the ship at red alert and is attempting to hail the Klingon vessels, demanding they break off their attack on the colony or they will face the full force of the Federation flagship. They're letting him meet static. He orders the relief tactical officer to lock phasers on the Vorcha, targeting their engines. However, before the Enterprise can open fire, the Klingons warp away. Geordi notes they're being hailed, and it's Riker. Riker informs Picard they successfully fended off the raiders and that repairs should be able to be completed in a day or two. Picard tells him that's good news before telling him to report back to Enterprise for debriefing. Riker says he will, but he thinks Worf may have one last piece of business to attend to. We then cut to Kang's office, where he sits across from Worf, a mug of blood wine in each of their hands. He notes that with the raid by House Kruge, it seems very unlikely that they have any affiliation with any of the three men who are currently up for the governor position. However, there's no guarantee that it's not a misdirect by one of the three. He then says he wishes to, as humans would put it, address the elephant in the room. Perhaps when he said what he did of Worf when he attempted to join the KDF, he was wrong. Worf saved his life and, in Kang's eyes, has proven himself to be a true Klingon warrior. Kang cites he still has sway with the High Council, and he can have Worf instated in the KDF at an equivalent rank to his Starfleet one, maybe even as a commander. Worf pauses before telling Kang that his words honour him. However, he's made an oath to Starfleet, and to leave to pursue his own wishes would be dishonourable. Kang's taken aback by his decision but respects it, wishing Worf well and instructing him that should there come a day where he needs help, Kang would be honoured if Worf would call on him. Back on the Enterprise, Picard is in his ready room. There's a chime at the door and he orders the person there, "Come!" Wesley steps inside, apologising if he's bothering the captain. Picard is taken aback by the young visitor but offers him a seat nonetheless, before asking what he can do for him. Wesley says he wanted to ask Picard something. He tells the captain that he keeps thinking about seeing Rodriguez's body on the planet, and he wants to know if it ever gets any easier. Picard tells Wesley that for a time it did. Wesley asks what he means, and Picard tells him there was a time when seeing the deaths that came with the uniform hardened him every time he saw them. That was until he was looking at the body of a dear friend, and in that moment he realised that being hardened to death and not caring when it occurs isn't a strength, it's a weakness. He concludes by telling Wesley that that was perhaps the most important lesson that Jack Crusher ever taught him, and that his only regret is that it came with such a steep cost. Wesley swallows hard and nods. Picard notes that Jack was his best friend, and he saved his life more times than he can count. He then tells Wesley that should he need to talk about anything at any time, he's always welcome in the ready room. On the bridge, Riker's sat in the captain's chair. Worf enters, looking around and taking it in for a moment. Riker questions if he's got something he wants to tell them. Worf pauses before telling Riker that repairs are complete and they can depart at any time. At this point, Picard enters, gesturing for Wesley to proceed to the turbo lift as he approaches the captain's chair. As he does, he tells Worf to lay in a course before the episode concludes with "Engage!" And that's my rewrite of Code of Honor. This one was a literal ground-up rewrite, and to be fair, I deliberately chose to start with one that could only be improved. You go with the easy stuff to begin with. Regardless, I hope you've all enjoyed this. If you have, please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you all out there. Theorist to Enterprise. One to beam up.